Hi, this is Tina Salinas. I have a guest parent who unfortunately is an alienated father. His name is Marcello. I got that right?
Yes, you got it.
Okay. Um, Again, this is Tina Salinas from We Are the Voice for the Silence and Afflicted, and we are going to let Marcello have a chance to speak. He has some um, information that hopefully might help some other fathers out there and or mothers. It works both ways, unfortunately, in this situation. Marcello, go ahead. The floor is yours.
Okay, well, I just like any other citizen, whenever people would so approach me and talking about corruption in the United States, yeah, I would still have the idea that you know people was somehow telling me a bunch of other stuff that was not true. Okay, to me, it used to sound like a conspiracy theory. I really, truly used to believe that this country is really a country of freedom, liberty, a place where you can call home, a place where the citizens are treated differently than any part of the world. I'm an originally from the United States. Okay, I'm originally from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, and when I first came over here, I came just to spend a couple of months, study a little bit of English, and go back to finish college. But how life it is full of surprises. I met the woman of my life. In the meantime, we got married, we have two beautiful kids. We got divorced unfortunately because of some incidents, but we're still very good friends until today. And then after many years being divorced, I decided to settle down, and I met this woman, and this is when everything started. That's how it was the stepstone for me to get inside the corrupted family court system. And and when I was able for the first time to see the true colors of this country, on how corrupt they are, on how abusive they are, it's just incredible on how they can, these people, they just swear, on an oath, you know what I'm saying, to protect the constitutional rights, and they end up doing everything, you know,
They
completely.
don't uphold it. They don't
They,
uphold the
no,
Constitution either.
they don't, absolutely not. And I feel sorry for those people who does, they still believe that this country is really a safe place to be. We are under threat. The society is under threat. There's no doubt about it. Okay, things just getting worse and worse. And it's definitely time for people, start to realize, even those who have not been affected, support us, the affected ones, so we can together, start to force it, those people who we elect, to really represent our interests, and because if you leave it the way it is, only God knows on how, worse things can get. I don't think it can get worse than already is, to be honest with you. It got to the point where it's just like, it's all exposed for everyone who wants to see it. It's all over the place. Yeah, that's impossible. One community, one neighborhood that does not going through, have not been exposed to the corruption family court yet. That's how bad it is.
Y- Yeah, you're right. And I've said this plenty of times in other podcasts where it was amazing. I thought I was the only person. You don't realize when you're in your own situation and in your own box, how many other people are affected with this same situation here. And it's very sad. In my perspective on it, I feel I'm a human being. I don't really need a piece of paper to tell me what's morally correct, and how we should be treated or what our rights are. If you're a parent, by right, you should be able to take care of your child financially, physically, mentally, emotionally, educationally, whatever aspect, fashion, or form you may want, without the interference of the system causing some type of discrepancies amongst your relationship.
That's what the law says, right?
So I actually realized as a parent, I can carry my child for 9 months. And as soon as I have that child,
You don't want to try
unfortunately,
anymore.
you do not. That child is actually born technically in the system.
You
You
know
have
what?
to go and file.
Yeah, yeah. You know what is so funny? A friend of mine, you probably heard about him. He has, he's an activist as well, and have been doing such a, great work. He's in New York. His name is James Kelly. Are you familiar with the
I
name?
don't think I've heard from him. Nope, I don't think I've
Yeah,
heard of him, but I will
you,
definitely look up.
he's one of the guys. Okay, the one of the few that I met throughout this whole process, 4 years fighting in family court, who have been done such a great work. Okay, we're talking about a guy who have been stepping inside the court. He really challenged the judges in a way that nobody ever have done before. Okay, but he, somehow he's in a place where, kind of help him a little bit to do what he's doing, because we're talking about this guy lost everything. Okay, his house, he completely private for many years from, both of his kids' life. You know what I'm saying? So since he, he's, he find himself in this situation where he lost everything. He's not afraid of anything. He have been done great things as far as try to bring, how can I say, impeachment judges. He have a case right now. He just filed. You know what I'm saying? In federal court in order to impeach judges, and have cameras in court. And it has been, hope, this is a guy that definitely needs our support, because whatever he's doing, it's great. It's definitely going, it's going to help us to, to be in a much safer situation. You know,
Most
and I
definitely.
and then one thing that he told me one time was that, you know I always remember one thing: when you marry, you're not just married with your wife; you're married with the state. Okay, there's a third party involved in your marriage. Okay, and the one will have more authority than both of you guys, because once they step in, forget about it. Not you or your wife has authority at all. Yeah,
Especially when you have children involved as well. That's the main
exactly.
problem right there, because marriage is, I take very seriously. Okay, so they're a lot different than just a regular relationship. So to
Hmm.
me, when you have a discrepancy in your relationship, you should be able to figure out some type of means to reestablishing that relationship. And if, of course, it doesn't work out, because in many situations it doesn't,
Hmm.
find a different ground as mature adults and figure out how to relinquish the relationship. But the child or children at hand should not have to suffer. And usually in situations, especially dealing with, narcissists or domestic violence,
That's my
um,
case.
yes, a narcissist. I've been doing a lot of research with the parental alienation and have realized that narcissism is
Listen,
one of the main key factors.
listen. Believe it or not, I would consider myself a narcissist, which I believe we all have a little bit of that. Okay, but in my whole entire life, I never had an opportunity to experience this level of narcissism before, where a parent have such a lack of empathy towards their own child, which is horrible, you know, and it can harm the child for a lifetime. And this is the reason why, I made a determination that I will never stop fighting for my daughter as long as I'm still breathing. I love my child very much. I love all of my children. I have 3 kids. Okay, and, what is so interesting. I'm gonna tell you a story right now about my situation. Okay, I was never married with the mother of the mother of my child, the subject child to this custody case that I'm dealing with in family court right now. I was married just once, and I have 2 boys, one 18, and the other one is going to be 17. Uh, and I have been single parent for most of the time. Okay, unfortunately, my ex-wife, she became mentally ill after she gave birth to my second child. She went from postpartum trauma, depression, bipolar, and schizophrenic. Unfortunately, her grandmother had that as well. That was in her genes. But until today, we're still very good friends. I always support her relationship with the kids. I pay for flight tickets for her to come and visit the children. They have a wonderful relationship. Okay, I think it's very important for the kids to see that. Because first of all, my ex-wife, she didn't choose to be sick. Okay, she was hit by life really hard. You know what I'm saying? But I do believe that God has a
Right.
purpose for everything. I don't have, unfortunately, we don't have an answer for everything, but I did what I could until the present moment to support the relationship with the
You didn't
children.
hold it against her for her
Never, absolutely.
chemical. It's a chemical imbalance actually, so it's
No,
nothing that she can really help. So you didn't hold that against
exactly,
her.
exactly. And so anyways, my family, love her until today. Sometimes she take flights, she go to Rio de Janeiro, she spends time with my mother. Okay, she see my mother like her mother, because unfortunately she come from a broken home, and her parents, they're not very supportive. And and they, just like I say, I always support. I never use that against her. And there is many parents over there, especially narcissistic parent. Like, hey, if they have psychological problem, they definitely would use that against them, say how dangerous and harmful they can be for the children. No, because I know how she is. She's very sweet, okay, and she taking her medication. She's, she was never harmful to anyone. I was like, why am I going to support that? Okay, I know
So
how.
you have two different situations basically. You had a situation where although again, this person, she was very loved. She was a great person, but unfortunately, life hit her in the wrong way. And, chemically, her brain just couldn't handle what life was giving her. You guys were still able to agree
Manage.
mutually on the best interest for your children.
Yes.
And now it seems like you went from like good straight down to evil. Because when you're dealing with a narcissist,
Uh-huh.
that's a whole nother breed of, I don't
Completely.
even know if you want to call them a person, okay? Because they
Yeah.
have no feelings
No
whatsoever.
feelings. It is incredible. It is incredible on how, the need that these people have to just, continuously harassing you.
It's
You
a
know,
supply.
it's just exactly just for their own emotional satisfaction and hurt their children, abuse their children because it's already proven scientifically. Science is on our side. Okay, it's already proven that parental alienation is definitely a form of abuse. It does harm the child for a lifetime, and they don't care. Have no idea how many times the few times when I had an opportunity, I tried to educate her over the phone when I was having a video call with my daughter, but she does not. It
You
doesn't click.
can't. You're wasting your time.
Yeah, I waste my time. I realize that people with that type of personality disorder, it's just like a bucket with a bigger hole. It doesn't matter how long you keep filling the bucket. It's they never feel.
And what's sad with some of those
Nothing fulfill them.
cases, yeah, what's sad with some of those cases, I've read quite a bit on that as well, because I've had a situation with a narcissist too, and I at first my mind was blown away because I just couldn't understand how humanly possible somebody could just continuously be on a vengeance to hurt somebody even when there's nothing bad going on. It's like consistent.
Consistent.
You can be the best person in the world for that person, but it's still never going to be a good enough for them. So I did a lot of research on that as well, but it does affect the child in such a manner that it can change them as well to become a narcissist
Yes,
themselves as they
that's
grow
true.
older. And some of these narcissists do have situations, traumatic situations that have happened in their past that they just couldn't handle. That something in their brain just clicks and it's like, that's it. I got to be in control. I need the red carpet rolled out for me. I'm King Tut or Queen Bee or whatever you want to call it, and
Hmm.
screw everybody's feelings around me. But the child, there are a lot of children that thankfully don't have to endure that type of personality, but there's so much more that's involved with that child growing up and emotionally how it's attacking them as a character, and as somebody in society, on who they're going to portray and how they're going to portray themselves.
I believe that having been, since 1 year after everything started, I started to educate myself about, this matter through, reading many books of Dr. Craig Children, especially. He's great. I have been learning a lot with him, and I was able, while I was going proceed to represent myself very well using many of his arguments. Yeah, but like it's just difficult when you don't have that diploma, because in the end of the day, if you don't bring an expert witness with you, they just look at you. Who you think you are, even though you're saying them the truth from an expert, right? They just try to dismiss whatever you're saying because
It's a
you're
lot
not
of
an expert.
information.
That's
Yeah,
what
it's
I'm
a lot of
saying.
information to retain, unfortunately.
And I'm sure they know that. Okay, as you can see, it's all designed for profit. Okay, we're talking about judges that have been on the bench for 30 years. How many experts they saw, okay, come before them and talking about parental alienation, narcissistic, right, personality? They already educated about it, but they pretended like they don't know, so they can play the game. They corrupt the game, okay, and delay the whole process. And this way, they continue to, get all this incentive from the federal government, all this $1 billion a year. You know what I'm saying? And never, it end up never serving the best interest of the child. They harm more the child, they protect the child, they harm the family, they destroy everything. One thing leads to another, because once these kids start to go to school, high school, they get labeled with psychological problem. They get hooked with the pharmaceutical industry. It's just like another $1 trillion profit for the government right there. Yeah, it's incredible. A lot of people. I try to, as much as I can, to bring awareness to people. And since when I became, the more knowledge I get from this painful experience, I have been realizing how people started to just walk away from me. Especially, I'm talking about the people who cannot relate with our situation. Because it does sound like a conspiracy theory, right? For to those who doesn't, never was exposed to this kind of thing. And I have been working on myself and learning on how to approach people, and how much to say, when to stop, or sometimes is not when not, you know, not say anything at all. Because people sometimes they're not just prepared for that type of information, they're not interested at all. Because otherwise, we start to, experience social problems. And you can help it because at some point, since you were still involved, you became so passionate, right, with this subject that
Right.
the only thing that you think day and night, by the time you wake up to the time you go to bed, because you still experience that. You're still missing your child. You're still experiencing seeing your child being abused and being completely powerless and not being able to do anything to protect your own child. This is really difficult. You know.
You're 100% right. And we can't even fathom. I mean, us as adults, we know how we feel and how we can handle things emotionally, which is just as bad. But our children, we can't even imagine emotionally what they're going through, what the manipulation tactics are being used, on top of that, because that's also a key factor in parental alienation.
Yeah.
And the sad point with that is typically it could either destroy or bring a child closer to that other parent. It just all depends on that person individual, that child individually, how they form and, grow up. They can wait till years later and say, listen, I've heard all this nasty stuff. Now I'm old enough to make my own decision. Now I want to, venture out there and fend for this other parent. But there's that time gap that unfortunately you could never bring back and take back. And there's so much damage that's already been dumped into that situation. And then you have other situations where the same exact thing happens, but instead of the child seeking the other party's, words of advice or information, or their side of the story, they would rather just put their hands up and say, the damage is done. Now I'm going to move on. So I think the best thing that any parent can do is, like, such as yourself, find something to indulge your feelings in, and keep yourself strong and keep raising awareness. And you know what? No matter what, if you feel that there's some friends and families that are actually supposed to be there defending you and they've kind of dropped like flies for whatever reason, because maybe they're not understanding or they're not aware of the situation, or maybe they're just ignorant to it.
And we cannot
What
blame
I
them
can
for it.
say, right, exactly, and you
And that's
can't
one thing
force
that
anybody,
I tried to
unfortunately.
learn about it, because before I was to, I had a hard time to manage my frustration, my anger, right? Because there's just so much persecution out of, unnecessary persecution, right? Because if you basically, since the day one when I step into court, I have been persecuted for absolutely nothing. You're talking about a woman who just, her lies flies like crazy inside the court. Okay, all perjury, no evidence of anything she say, and they make orders out of her own, just her statement, deprive a parent, from seeing the children for such a long period of time. So this way, they facilitate the narcissistic parent to brainwash the child. Everything it's like, designed perfectly to really get to the point where, you know, how can I say, to support some sort of criminal act, because as you already know, how many people sometimes they cannot endure the fight. Okay, they end up committing suicide. They end up killing their own children. Okay, there's
Right.
hundreds of cases. It's happen every week, every month. Okay, it is really insane. And one of the things that have been kept me very strong, it came to the point that I have no other choice, because I have a, you know, I don't know if I can call myself a Christian, but since there is no other label, existing label, so, I have a very strong faith in God. Okay, and I have been, in the past, I used to be very involved in the Christian church. and I have, I was, fortunately, I have many great experience with God alone, one on one, which changed my life completely. I left the church because I got disappointed with people inside the church. Okay, and I used to be very young in those days, but my experience with God alone changed my life completely. I was heavy, doing my own thing, believe it, just like any other person, believe it that I'm a good person. I'm not killing anybody, and I'm not stealing. I work, I pay my tax, I take care of my kids. That's fine. But there's much more, you know, that we should be doing as, you know, how can I say, image of God,
Believers in Christ.
believers
Believers in
in
Christ.
Christ.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? And we have a purpose to fulfill in this earth. You know what I'm saying? It's very important to be focused to fulfill the purpose that God has for us instead of just living in old and die without fulfilling that. You know what I mean? Okay, so I decided to go back to church, and it has been great. God have been giving me so much strength and peace inside of me and wisdom and patience. I'm sure if I was trying to do on my own, I would never, would be able to make it. To be honest with you, and I definitely give it to. I need to give all the glory to God, for all the victories that for being alive, for find balance, be able to find balance in my life and continue to do the right thing. It's not easy. This is definitely not the kind of fight, that anyone can endure. You know that. So
Yeah, definitely. He deserves all the praise, definitely. And I'm kind of glad that you actually said that because sometimes I'm a little iffy, especially on social media. But I have been encountering a lot more people that are believers that are going through the same thing. And I truly do believe, like I said earlier, that we are the generation that is going to rise up. And we are the ones that are strong because we are getting our strength and we can admit it openly without a problem. We're not ashamed of it.
mhm.
And to give all the glory to Him. So I do respect that so much. Back on your story, if you don't mind, I was just kind of wondering while you were talking, did you notice that she had this narcissistic character when you first got with her? Was it after the marriage? Was it while you guys were having your child? Like, how long did this attitude go on with her and then all of a sudden, you were ripped away from your child?
Okay. Well, to be honest with you, I, I'm a real estate broker in Manhattan. I met her. She was one of my clients, showing an apartment. And believe it or not, as I was showing her an apartment, she was feeling very comfortable with an unknown person like myself and talking about her personal problem. So basically, her husband kicked her out. I'm saying kicked her out of the apartment. She had to find a place as soon as possible. There was a drama going on in her life. And I was just listening, as I was showing some apartments. She never closed the deal with me, and then she called me one time and saying, well, I found an apartment, but thank you so much, Marcelo, for your help, blah, 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 blah. I'll keep your number in mind if I need anything. I never heard from her again. But since I do a lot of advertisement online, and I started to use it in those days, social media to advertise myself, listings and stuff like that, she was already on my list of Facebook friends, and without I even know. And one time I started to chat, I say she started to post comments under my posters, and we started to chat. And I could not even remember who she was. I'm saying it took me a long time for me to be like, you know what? I think I know you. Where do you work at? Like a year ago, where you look for an apartment, yada yada yada, Upper East Side. She was like, "Oh, you were the broker." I say, I don't know if she was pretending like it was a coincidence, but for me, it was a coincidence completely. Okay, because I have like a Facebook with 5,000 people. It's hard to keep in track. Most of the people really know. Okay, it's all for business
Right.
purpose. And in those days, she was visiting her family. Okay, she's Russian, but she was born in Latvia. She come from a Russian family, born in Latvia. Okay, she was like, "Oh, I'm visiting my family right now because I invited her to go for a dinner for a date." And she was like, "Okay, so we can meet when I come back." Blah blah blah. So since the day one when she came back, okay, we were talking for 1 month over the phone, and we got very well connected emotionally, just by talking for so many hours, almost every day. Okay, of course, she was saying all the right things I want to hear. And when she came back, she had her own apartment, I have my own house, but my place was much bigger than hers. And since she was for months just be in my place to pay for a rent for no reason, I was like, you know what, things are going well between me and you. It's been a couple of months. Why you not moving? You know what I'm saying? She was like, well, you know what? I was just waiting for you to make me, give me the invitation because I basically, I already, I haven't been living over here for you with you and paying rent for nothing. So, anyways, when she moved in, this is when I started to find a bunch of lies, a bunch of things that she never disclosed about her personal life, and I decided at some point to completely let it go. I was like, you know what? I'm not gonna judge you for anything that happened before you met me, but let's just move on and wash it off for everything. Even though I gave her the benefit of doubt, saying she started to do a lot of things that was not acceptable. Okay, as I started to notice that we have completely different values. Completely. Okay, she's the kind of person. She's an unbeliever. She don't believe in God. She don't have no spirituality. And that was one of my mistakes. Okay,
Got to
makes
be evenly yoked.
yes, that's right. Thank you. And but I used to believe it that by since she was so infatuated, to me in those days, and she really was really willing to jump in a serious relationship with me. She used to treat my both of my sons so well, and my kids were like that. I really like her and everything. That was one of the main keys, probably. To be honest with you, because at that point I was like many years. Okay, work as a real estate. I'm saying dating, and as a single parent. It came to the point I was like, you know what? I want to give a mother figure to my children. You know what I'm
Did
saying?
she have children as well? I'm sorry.
No, she did not. And by the way, she could not have a kid. Believe it or not. Okay,
Oh, wow.
when we decided to have a kid, she could not have a child. We went to the doctor, and the doctor told, and she was already in mid 30s, and the doctor told her, "Listen, you cannot have children at all. You're not over how it's called. You don't have no ovulation. That's how they call it, right? That's
So
the
she
medical
couldn't
term.
produce any? She
Yeah,
couldn't
she was
produce any
not
eggs.
producing any eggs, and the only way she could have a child would be if she would pay for those, very expensive, treatment.
Artificial?
Yes, and I,
That's, yeah.
and I told her, okay, she was really sad, and I was like, you know what? Something inside of me tell me that you're not just gonna have a child, but it's gonna be a little girl. She was like, well, I knew since the beginning the problem is not with you because I already have 2 kids, and I have been trying to have kids with my ex-wife, but it never happened. But now we know. I was like, no, we're gonna have a child. 2 months after was my birthday, and she gave me a little box. When I opened the box, it was the test positive. She was pregnant of 1 month and a half.
Wow.
So basically, my daughter was conceived, okay, through my faith in God. I don't know what happened, but okay, there was the doctor's report versus a miracle. It was amazing. My daughter was definitely a miracle baby, and she's beautiful. She's daughter's little girl. She's daddy's little girl. This is another thing that the mother hates the most because even though she spends most of the time with my child, whenever my daughter sees me, she gets crazy. Daddy, daddy, daddy. She never, you know, and she loves her
I
brother.
think I think with every female, and maybe I'm wrong, but
Yeah,
I
that's
think
what
with
it
every
is.
female, yeah, they love their mom, but they are very attached to their dads, which,
Yeah, there's something
yeah,
about daddy and daughters. Yes.
yeah, I think it's a beautiful thing though. What parent wouldn't want there should be no competition when it comes to parenting, you know what I mean? Especially when
That's
the
true.
child's in a loving a
That's
stable
true.
home.
And she used to be jealous. She used to express jealousy in my relationship with my child while we were living together. I have no idea. I remember there was one time that we were in the kitchen. Okay, I have a sound system in the kitchen. I love music. Okay, I have speakers all over my house. So whatever, man, I just put I put the Bluetooth. I press one button. I have my
It's wonderful for the soul, I tell you. I
oh
go
yeah,
not
no
one
doubt.
day without having
Yes,
music.
I play instruments as well. I used to have a band in high school,
Oh, do
so
you?
I'm very connected with music. Yes, and so basically one day I do remember. Okay, she was cooking. My daughter was sitting in a high chair, and I decided to put a song from remember that old band? It's called Creed. He said with arms wide open.
Yes, I do.
I'll show you everything. So basically, that song was made it. Okay, he made it for his children, right? It's a beautiful song from parent, okay, to a child. So as I was singing that song to my daughter was so happy, jumping up and down. She probably was around 13 months old, okay, with the biggest smile on her face, and I could not, you know, keep a hold of myself. I started to have tears in my eyes. I started to cry. I got emotional. I hugged my daughter, you know what I'm saying? And she saw, as she was watching us and seeing me getting emotional, singing to my daughter, and my daughter hugging me after a while, you know what I'm saying? She was like, wow, you know, I wish you would love me as much as you love our daughter. When I look at her, I
Did
was like,
that raise control or concern? I'm sorry. Did that raise concern to
he
you
did
when you
it.
noticed?
Yes, this was the very first time when I was like, you know what, there's something not right with this person. And I replied to her like, you know what, I really don't understand why you're making such a statement, you know, because there is a big different type of love between parents and a child and in a relationship. Okay, you just got off a relationship before you met me, right? And here we are, experiencing a love with a different person. Now I'm never gonna be divorced from my child. I always gonna be her father, no matter what. You know what I'm saying? And it's not like I love her more than you, or I love her. My love for her is a parent love. My love for you, it's a partner love. It's a
There
completely
should be no comparison anyways
it's no,
when it comes to a child and a parent. That is so totally different compared to an actual a grown adult relationship. So, I don't know.
but definitely tells you a lot, right? That was the first red flag. And after there was one thing after another. I remember times when, because I did try everything to keep the family together. We're talking about couple therapy. Okay, let me tell you the story about this couple therapist. So basically, once I started to realize that she had some sort of emotional problem, okay, because she's the kind of person like little things would, because of little things she used to cry and cry hysterically. Okay, I thought she was going through some sort of postpartum trauma, depression, whatever. She had the baby and everything. She's not saying.
I was going to ask, did she ever get diagnosed with anything other than, being a narcissist?
No, because she's afraid, and I'm gonna get there. Okay, so after so many incidents and arguments and unnecessary fights, okay, I came with a conclusion. Even though I'm not a doctor and an expert, okay, but it's you don't need to be an expert to notice that someone going through something and it needs to be treated. Okay, and I was like, you know what, listen, I definitely want to be with you. You're the mother of my child. I do have feelings for you, and I think but we need to do something in order to fix the problem. Okay, I noticed that you have uh, a very serious emotional issues, and every time you get emotional, sometimes you used to get physical aggressive with me in front of the children. Okay, she put me in jail with a false accusation of domestic violence.
So
The
was that
thing,
the first time? Or is that the
yeah,
first time?
yes, that yeah, okay. That this is the famous. You ever heard about the silver bullet, right?
I'm sorry.
Silver bullet expression. Have you ever heard about that?
Can you explain that for our audience?
Okay, so basically, silver bullet means when someone get coached on how to get rid of the husband. Okay, believe it or not, there is a bunch of organizations out there, even attorneys, when they know they can win the case. Okay, they teach the clients on how to arrange a situation where they can. Okay, first of all, okay, it doesn't take much for a female in our society, okay, to get a male arrested. So once they step in the press, they call 911 and they say, he hit me. That's all it takes. Okay, so basically, this woman, she left at 2 o'clock p.m. and she left the baby with me because it was really cold outside. And I told her, listen, if you want to leave the house, that's fine, because we have an argument. And I decided at that point, because I gave her many notice that I want to break up with her. We don't not get along. My kids were crying because we were living in hell. She screams a lot. She slammed doors whenever she get nervous. My kids were exposed to you know, a, a drama that I started to feel guilty, afterwards, because I was the one who decided to invite this woman to come into our lives. But at the same time, I have, since the beginning, I have a good intention. And one of the reasons why I did that was because of my children as well, because my kids love her in the beginning. She was doing everything to them, and, you get along with them and play with them. And it was to tell me, oh, I think you should get married with her. One time, my oldest son, he was to be only 11 years old in those days. He got to her in the Christmas. He was like, oh, I wish you could be my mother. Okay, and my oldest son,
Ah,
yeah, my oldest son, he's a little bit autistic. Okay, believe it or not, this woman tried to use the fact that my son is a little bit autistic in court, and tried to tell that he represents harm to my daughter. Okay, he's the
So,
sweetest.
do you mean she's saying that because your son is autistic, that your
Yeah,
son was causing harm to your daughter?
yes,
That's a monstrous thing to do
yes,
in
yes.
court, and I really
I,
hope they didn't
no, of course
condone
not.
that.
Of course not, because I have reports. My son never represent harm to himself. You know what I'm saying? Because he's not, he doesn't have the severe autism. Okay, just a very slight. If you see him, you cannot even tell he has autism. He developed a lot because I'm on top of all his needs. He have speech therapy growing up. Okay, he have a therapy once a week. He have therapy in school. Okay, he have a occupational therapy, physical therapy, all kind of service. And if you look at him, he doesn't look like, you know what I'm saying? Just when you start to have a long conversation, you start to realize that he's a little bit immature for his age. But, eventually that is going to be, it's going to fade away as he's getting older. But he's very smart. He's computer smart. He reads, he's just doing, amazing. Okay. So I have reports from therapists, from neurologists, from school, you know what I'm saying? And I was able to prove that my son definitely does not represent any harm. And I have no idea how much my daughter loves her brother and the older brother. I
I
have
can't even imagine.
he's
I
so
can't even
sweet and
imagine.
protective to her, his little sister, you know, and she loves him.
And how did you feel as a parent to hear this woman say, now you guys shared a bed together, clearly you have a child together. I know you had to have been in awe, like, wait a minute, did she really just go there? Did she really just hit the bottom of the barrel right there?
Yes, yeah. It's just it was hard to swallow in. It really was. You know what I'm saying? But I have no choices. Yeah, I don't have no control over people's right choices, and she did what she did. It was really painful, But again, God was the one who gave me the strength, to keep myself together and not doing anything crazy. But it was definitely, it was not easy to manage. You know, when I first heard that statement, and so basically, after those incidents, hold on a second. Let me just go back a little bit because there's just so much details
You're fine,
regarding the
take your time.
case. I had a couple therapist, and she started to go to the couple therapist by herself because in those days I have my hands full with the clients. It was right after, I'm saying we finished with all the situation about the false arrest. Okay, it took me time to have good clients again, because when you work as independent contractor with real estate, it's not an easy thing. Okay, it takes time for you to have a serious client, couple of months for them to find the right property. Okay, months to be approved by the bank, and the list goes on and on, right? And and she started to go to the therapist by herself. One day I finally find a time, and I thought that was really weird, but I was like, you know what, you have something, you know, if you feel the need to go to the therapist by yourself, that's fine. And by the way, in the beginning, I was trying to convince her to go to the therapist by herself because, everybody has problem, but she had this major emotional problem that was causing so much problem to us on a daily basis that I was like, listen, you need to go to therapy. And she used to come up to me. She used to say that I'm not going to the therapy because I don't know if you find something wrong with me in case if you go if you broke up, you're going to use that against me to get the custody of the child. That's what she used to tell me.
But usually and typically in those situations, they would have a separate therapist for her or a psychiatrist or however you want to put it, and then you guys would have your conjoined therapist for your couples therapy. I mean, rationally, it wouldn't make any sense for her to go to the couples therapies by herself because it's not benefiting your guys' relationship.
Right.
Um, so yeah,
Absolutely.
that's a little odd.
It is odd, but you have no idea how many things I find out afterwards. Okay.
I believe you. I believe you.
Just to make a long story short, my first visit, when I finally made myself available to go to the couple therapy, we're talking about this couple. I felt so uncomfortable. This couple therapy was the entire time and talked to me, blamed me, and talked to me sideways, completely on her side. A couple therapy. And I was, feeling very comfortable. As soon as I step out, I was like, listen, I would never come back to this person again. I'm still willing to work in our relationship. We're gonna find another couple therapy, okay? But this time, I'm gonna make sure there's gonna be a Christian couple therapist because I want someone who come. I can introduce the word of God, because I don't know if it's just a any typical therapist can do anything, to be honest with you. You know what I'm
Well,
saying?
can I ask real quick? Because I know
Absolutely.
you just mentioned she was trying to go by herself. Was
Mhm.
this the same counselor that she was actually seeking advice from? Was it the same counselor that was supposed to do your couples counseling? And the only
Yeah.
reason why I'm asking is because
Yes, I find
her.
out for
Okay, so her attitude basically changed. It seems as if because she was seeing her more frequently, and they've already
right,
established some type of
right.
relationship.
Absolutely, yes. And I did a lot of research about this woman. I find out that she belongs to many feminist movements. Okay, and I find, there was a couple of times when I came home from work, and she did not realize that I got home, and she was talking with a couple therapists bad about me and asking for advices, legal advices. Well, why do you think you should do that? So I got in the room. I was like, well, who you talk with about me like that? Okay. And when I took the phone from her, I was like, oh, okay. When I say hello, the couple therapists hang up on me. But that was too late. At least I was able to find out. You see how God exposed things, right? And so after that, the first day when I stepped in court, believe it or not, the same couple therapist make a report talk bad about me, saying, "Oh, how abusive I am." This woman just saw me one time, and all the report, okay, was all to about favor the mother of my child, which was completely illegal, because based on the law, I'm looking forward to at some point, okay, sue this person. Okay, but it's just so much I can do. You gotta pick and choose your battle, because right now I have my hands free. I need to focus on the custody of my daughter, no matter what. Okay, because by law I find out, okay, last year, that since I was her client as well, she could never submit any report like that. That's a big violation. Her license definitely going to be compromised because of what she did at some point once I start to file the paperwork.
So, so just to follow you correctly, you're in family court basically at this point, correct?
No, actually,
For
I was the petitioner in family court. Okay, and for some reason, because I thought, you know what, I don't think I need an attorney. I don't have no criminal records. I'm successful, raised two kids by myself. Okay, I pay my tax. I'm professional worker in the same industry for over 13 years. Why I need to pay so much money for an attorney? I'm just gonna show up in court, okay, and they're gonna give you 50-50. I wish to be, that's wish to be my, you know, the idea that I have about the family court. Okay, so once I went to family court, she have an attorney with her. Okay, and he was able to transfer everything from family court to Supreme Court, IDV, domestic violence. Okay, and this woman, she's horrible, horrible, horrible judge. If you see her reviews, have no idea how many people I met, you know, through the movements in New York, who their lives got completely destroyed by the same judge. Okay, and I so basically,
was she successful on pressing charges on you? Is that what happened? Because I'm trying to kind of understand how
yes,
she went from family to supreme without any criminal charges being pressed.
yes, because basically there was a the mother was arrested. That's how she moved out from my house. Okay, after I got arrested, after a couple of months trying the couple therapy and everything. Okay, one day I came home. Both of my kids, they were left alone all day, and they were really hungry. Okay, the mother left with my child under the cold all day, and I when I came home, my kids were complaining, "Daddy, I'm hungry." I was like, "What happened with the mother of the child?" And she was like, "Oh, she's not home all day." I was like, "Okay, do you know where she's at?" She was like, "No." I called her up. She didn't answer my phone call, and I told my kids, "You know what? Let's get inside the car. It's kind of late. It was around 9:30, 10 o'clock at night." I took my kids to buy some pizza. As I was driving the car, my child started to I started to listen to my child in the back seat crying. I put over my car right away. I was like, "Son, what's going on? Why are you crying?" And he was like, "Daddy, I can't take this anymore." I was like, "What are you talking about?" I'm talking about, okay, my child in those days, he was only 12 or 13 years old, my youngest child. He was like, "Daddy, this woman, she's constantly screaming in the house. You already went to jail because of her. Okay, I'm afraid that she's gonna put you in jail again. I cannot live with this anymore, Daddy." At that moment, okay, I just started to realize how much my child was being affected. Okay, and I made him a promise. I was like, "Son, forgive me. because I'm feeling guilty because I chose this woman to be to be in a relationship with this woman, and now you guys are being affected because of my choice. But I always remember one of the reasons why I brought her in was because you guys used to be in love with her as well. She was like, I know, Daddy, I used to like her, but she's not the same person. I was like, you're right. Okay, but that is going to do everything I have to do. Okay, and it's going to start tomorrow. I promise you. Okay, so we got the pizza. We came back home. She came back home after a couple of hours, really late with the baby. My daughter was just 1 year, a couple of months. Yeah, in those days I was not talking to her very much, and so basically the next I could not sleep at that night after seeing my son crying like that, and I decided to cancel all my clients on the next day, and I went before the judge, and I filed for custody. And I told the judge, listen, unfortunately, there was an incident a couple of months ago. This woman, she put me in jail with a false accusation of domestic violence. I know how she is. She's get physical with me all the time. Okay, she lies, and if she receives this paper, and I don't have a order of protection, things gonna get crazy, and I'm gonna end up being in jail again. I cannot. Okay, so could you please give me an order of protection? So she decided to give me an order of protection along with the paper, the initial papers for the custody that I just filed.
So was this against just the woman, or did the judge put an order of protection against the woman and your child, your daughter as well?
No,
Because
no,
in
no.
some,
She gave me an order of protection, request the mother, saying that the mother could not assault me because we were living together in those days still. Okay, she could not.
oh, okay. So it was one of the modified ones where she could still be around you. You guys could talk, but she had to refrain from any type of physical
Yeah, it was
violence.
a
Okay.
refrain from. Thank you. I'm sorry, I forgot to address that.
That's okay.
And so what happened was, as soon as, believe it or not, as soon as she got served by the sheriff department, she came in the house like a dragon walking. And I was walking to see what's going on because she was taking a while to come back to the kitchen. Okay, and thanks to God, both of my kids, that was exactly the time when my kids arrived home from school, and she took the vacuum, she threw the vacuum on me, she started to curse me all kind of names. Both of my sons, they were so traumatized that as soon as they saw her reaction, taking the vacuum and throwing the vacuum on me, one of my son, my oldest one, he took his cell phone and he started to record everything, and she started to throw box of shoes on me.
Smart kid.
Yes, she started to throw box on me, shoes, box of shoes on me, cursing me, pushing me. It was horrible, And then she left the house very emotional, saying that she would go to the police officer to get my arrest again. I was like, okay, good luck with that because I'm calling the police right now, to protect myself. So I never thought I could put her in jail because I was so ignorant of the law in those days. I never got involved with the law. I never need to call police. My life was a very normal life before I got involved with this woman. Okay, and then what happened was I called the police, of course, because I was afraid of she come up with any lie and they come to arrest me again. The police came, she left the house. Okay, in the meantime, she came back to the house. She started to knock on the door because she forgot the keys. And she went, oh, I forgot the keys. I want to take the child with me. I was like, no, 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 you're not going to take the child with you. And you're not going to have the key. Come yourself. Okay, go for a walk, calm yourself down, and come back afterwards. Because right now, there's no way I want to have any contact with you. If you want to go to the police, go to the police because I'm going to call the police as well. And I called the police. The police came. She completely disappeared. When the police came, I made the police report. I explained the situation. I was like, listen, I'm very afraid. Okay, she's a female. She put me in jail one time with lies. And I want to make sure that you guys are going to be here. Okay, he's my kid. And then my kid approached us and say, Daddy, I record everything. I was like, oh, you did? Let me see it. So as I was watching the video, the police went inside his car. He started to type over that to give me, a copy of the police report. Okay, and then I was like, you know what? I would like to show you the video. My son recorded the video so we can see that I'm not lying. He was like, no, that's fine. I was like, well, but I would like you to see it. So he watched the video. He was like, you know what? Let me ask you something. You told me that she just got served with the papers, right? And this is the reason why she started to get crazy like that. I was like, yeah, she got served. That's for sure. I was like, sir, I just want to let you know one thing. Since she's already got served, we're going to have to arrest her.
She's in violation.
exactly. I didn't know that. I was so, and I was like, to be honest with you, I never put anybody in jail. She was the mother of my child. There's a big difference between someone who has empathy and someone who has lack of empathy. I could never imagine putting her in jail. And I was like, I told the police, you know what? Can I just, could you give me a couple of minutes to think if this is the direction I want to go? He was like, well, listen, we're not here to force you to do anything. But if you want to proceed with this, you're going to have to put her in jail after what you saw in the video. She definitely violated the court order. But if you don't want to make the police report, that's fine. Okay, that's your choice. You decide what you're going to do. I was like, listen, I need a minute to think about it because, I'm kind of confused right now. It's too much for information for me to digest. He was like, okay, so I give you 2 minutes because we got to go. And then I call a couple of my friends, my mother. I started to break in tears because I got really nervous. Okay, it was, and the police officer was like, "Okay, what you decided, sir?" I was like, "You know what? For my own sake and the sake of my children, there's no way I will not make it this report because right now she's probably in the precinct right now, with a bunch of lies trying to get me arrested, and I'm not lying, as you can see in the video. Okay, go ahead, do what you gotta do, you know." And so basically, she completely disappeared. She was under arrest, but nobody could find her. And she came home at 4 o'clock in the morning, and she didn't have no
That
key.
same day?
The same
That
day.
same
Actually, the next day because it was after midnight, right? She left at 2 o'clock p.m. She just come back at 4 o'clock in the morning. She called the police officer since she didn't have the key. She showed the police officer her ID with the address to prove that she was there, and they break into my house to allow her to come inside. I was sleeping in a hotel with my daughter and with my older son, and my youngest son was at home.
Wait
My
a minute. I thought they wrote a report earlier that day where it was
But this is what
justifying.
I'm talking about. The system, as you already know, does not work properly most of the time. Instead of they check in the system to see if there was any warranty, okay, they just saw a good-looking female, okay, white girl, right, showing the ID, oh, that's where I live. I don't have the key. They decide to open the house for her just like that, okay, and she could be doing, we never know. Can you imagine if this woman tried to do some harm into my son, the one that was asleep in the house?
Well,
Okay.
especially on how irate she was acting earlier that day. So
Exactly. So my son, he called me right away. He locked the door of his bed because he decided to hear the noise of the radio of the police officer, right? And he was like, "Daddy, I can hear the voice of so and so, and police is over here as well." I was like, "Listen, do not open the door. Okay, keep yourself over there, and keep your phone close to you because I'm gonna call you back." I immediately called the precinct and I speak with the sergeant, and I told the sergeant, "Sergeant, I don't know what's going on, but one of the guys came to my house and break into my house for a woman who has a warrant to be arrested. Okay, what the hell are you guys doing?" Okay, he was like, "What's the name of the person?" He saw in the system. He was like, "Sir, just be patient. I'm calling them right now, and she's gonna be arrested. Don't worry about it." That was okay. That was a mistake. Okay, so and then I called my son again. I was like, "Now we can unlock the door of the bed. Go over there, give your phone to the police officer." So he gave the phone to the police officer. I was like, "Hello, can you listen to me? Did you speak with the sergeant yet?" He was like, "Yeah, he's over here in the radio. So you know what you gotta do, okay? Please don't leave this woman alone with my daughter, with my son over there. I'm driving right now back home." Okay, so by the time I came home, she was arrested already. Okay, but since she was never arrested before, she left the jail the next day after.
where was your daughter when all this was going on?
She was with me,
Oh, okay.
of course. I would never leave my daughter with nobody. She was very young those days. Um, So, and then my daughter was with me with, 2 months before I appeared before the judge for the first time. And this is when everything started to happen. She showed up with an attorney. I don't have no voice because I don't have no attorney. And this attorney, he's over there every day. They know everybody. Okay. And she was lie after lies after lies after lies. And this Supreme Court judge came up to me. She was like, "Oh, I would like to see your daughter. We're going to stop for break right now because it's about lunchtime. Okay. Just bring your daughter over here after lunch. Okay, I want to see her. Don't worry about nothing's gonna happen. I just want to see if everything's okay with her." So I brought my daughter back after lunch, and then she decided. The judge made a rule to remove my daughter from me and give the child to the mother, back to the mother. Okay, she violated my due process of law right there. Okay, And she put me under supervised visitation with CPS, which was horrible.
On what grounds?
No grounds.
How
And,
long were your
and
supervised visitations?
she also called the DA office because this is under her jurisdiction, because she's from IDV, Supreme Court, Criminal Court, right? And now she told the DA offices to drop the case about her arrested and not prosecute her. That's what she did, so she could have be in control of the game of the corruption family.
So how did it flip? I'm kind of, oh my goodness, this is crazy. How the heck did it go from you've already done your time for the false accusations,
Right.
correct? And then she turned around and had her little incident and her spew of the mouth, which caused the police to come. You were trying to engage in proper procedure of handling her. Unfortunately, that didn't go through. But how the heck did it wind up bouncing back to you? Because you've already served your time for that.
Hmm.
Again, I just have to repeat that yes, it was a false accusation, but
Hmm.
how did the judge wind up bouncing back to that to where she found you unfit and you had to go to supervised visitations? Like,
No,
what is the transfer?
here's the thing: you should never provide any substantial evidence to the judge. There was just the first day.
Right.
There was the very first day. I don't have an attorney. She should give me time to prepare myself. He asked if I want an appointed attorney or if I'm getting ready to hire an attorney or if I want to represent myself and schedule another day, right?
Right. That's typically how it happens. Yeah.
That's how, that's if she was acting under her, how can I say?
Her oath.
Yes, that's what she was supposed to do. But, okay, when her decision was based in nothing more and less than personal. Okay,
It
it was
was
completely.
biased. Yeah. She had a.
Exactly. And so, and she's just a judge who's going to speak against the judge, right? Okay, the child is going to be taken away from you. The mother going to give the child. You want the supervised visitation. I was like, I was escorted by two police officers like a criminal. I could not even say goodbye to my daughter.
Where was the mother living at this time?
Oh, only God knows. I don't believe she had enough time to rent a place of her own. Okay, the ACS testify. They never ask a question like, "Have you visited the mother, the location where the mother lives, and how is the condition? It's proper for the child. It has everything over there. Nothing like that. The mother has, since the day one, the mother has been with the child. She have been changing addresses several times. Okay, recently I was able to trace most of my daughter's medical records. If you see the medical records alone speak for itself as red flags all over of neglect and abuse. Okay, including two head incidents when my daughter showed up. The mother brought the child to the doctor only 3 days, 2 days after. My daughter was only 2 years old. Can you imagine a child of 2 years old who cannot speak for him, herself, have a head injury, and the mother just take the child to be seen by a doctor 3 days after? That's insane, right?
Oh, yeah, I know because my son, hence the picture behind me, my son had something very similar happen. He was only 3 at the time and he come home with his whole forehead black and blue. And the picture itself that I have doesn't even explain what it fully really looked like. I mean,
Right.
his whole head was like just pushed out. So yeah, I can understand your frustration and your pain there, and I totally agree. Well, I mean, besides her not asking you if you were going to represent yourself or even be represented, and her giving you that time that she's supposed to do lawfully, it seems as if there was nobody court appointed. Did your daughter have a law guardian,
Oh,
as well?
until today has been the same law guardian. Since the first day has been the same law guardian. Okay, and this guy, he's horrible. Okay, we're talking about a guy, have no idea how many times I supply him with solid evidence, and he completely ignored. We're talking about an attorney who, he just leans on ACS reports, inaccurate ACS reports. And, have no, and I have tons of evidences right now that can prove, on how much CPS has lied on these reports. Okay, and but it's been 4 years. I have no idea. Can you imagine wait 4 years for the best interest of the child to be served? And I know
It's a
parents who
long
have,
time.
yes, and I have parents that have been in family court for 10 years. They still have they still have the chance to present a case yet, because that's what they do with fit parents. They usually take the children from the fit parents, they give it to the abusive one in most of the cases. Okay. And they know the fit parent, they have a lot to bring to the table. Okay. If they allow them to present a case. Okay. That's the reason why they always find a way to defend
It's
themselves.
money. They
Yeah.
know
They
they know
always
the abuser's going to continue coming into court,
exactly. And the fit
and the
parent,
protective parent, right,
yeah,
will nip it right in the
the
butt.
protective parents are always going to continue to fight. They're going to spend money with attorneys. You know what I'm saying? As long as if we're still breathing, we're going to go back over there to fight for our child. That's how they generate, all this money. That's I strongly believe that this is definitely part of the game. The agenda. It's been crazy, four
Yep.
years, and I have been seeing so much. But I have a feeling that God definitely at some point he gonna. I definitely cannot expect the justice from the family court. That's for sure.
So
Uh,
it's been 4 years, and
almost,
she was she granted full custody.
she
She
granted
was granted full custody.
she granted full custody to the mother. I was the petitioner. Okay, they did miss my petition because I have at that moment I have an appointed attorney because at some point I broke completely financially. Okay,
Right. No, I just want to kind of sum up for everybody what you've already said. So I just wanted to clarify that it's been 4 years. You've been into family court. She
hmm
was granted full custody. And then in the process of that 4 years, I know you mentioned something about supervised visitations. How long did that last? Is that still consistent, or is that even an option for you anymore?
Well, not at this moment. Since the summer of last year, okay, because my daughter, she started to come with different bruise marks in different occasions, many times. Even though when I was under supervised visits, okay, I took many pictures of different bruise marks in different occasions when I was under supervised visits, and this is how I got rid of the judge in Supreme Court who took the child away from me because I present those pictures, and my attorney I had a private attorney in those days. She was withhold the pictures and not showing to the judge. When I look at her and I saw her, not showing the judges the picture, I was like, "What the hell are you doing?" I took the pictures from her hands and I started to flash the pictures to the judge. I was like, "Judge, please, I don't know why my attorney is withholding the pictures from you, but here are the pictures, different bruises, different occasions. As you can see, the pictures has date and time. I took the pictures with my cell phone." And she was like, "Oh my God, what's going on here?" She told her attorney, "You know what? I would like to ask a question to your client, directed to your client." He was like, "Okay, go ahead." She was like, "Mom, could you tell me the reason why? Okay, where all these bruise marks come from?" The mother, she was catch by surprise and she don't know what to answer. Her answer was, "I don't know." So the judge, instead of making a decision right there to save the child for future for harm, she decided to recuse herself from the case. She transferred the case back to family court. That's what they do.
So what happened? What
Now,
happened when you were
I have
brought into
been
family court?
right now. I am before the fifth judge in family court. Okay, I have been growing throughout the process. And the only time I have victories inside the family court was when I was going pro se because I put the right things on the record. Okay, and I noticed when you have an attorney, it doesn't matter if they appointed or if they're private attorney, they talk behind closed doors. And by the time you step in, everything is already orchestrated. They just make things worse, and they pick and choose, what you say, and they know the things that the judge does not want them to say to be on the record. Okay,
Now, are you representing yourself in this case, or do you have an attorney?
I have a private attorney so far, and right now I'm in the process to fire one of my private attorneys. This is definitely going to be the last, and I'm going to go proceed again. And
So
because
can I make a suggestion real quick? Once
sure,
you do obtain a attorney,
Hmm.
please make sure that you record everything. I mean, literally, like voice, if you have a phone call, any private meetings amongst yourself and your attorney,
Can I tell
record
something?
everything.
Can I tell something? And I'm gonna do this in private right now, okay? Because I don't want to say this publicly. But there's some things that I find out about, you know, one of the people involved in this court that I would like you to know. Yeah, I just want to text you right now, real quick, so we will know exactly what I'm talking about. So, I know, but I definitely should, thinking about that before. But at some point, if I hired another attorney, I definitely gonna, you start recording because they are just all, most of the attorneys they are all the same,
Well,
and
not only that, they're also supposed to be properly representing you. And if they're not
no,
properly representing you, you can actually
absolutely.
yeah,
But
you can
here's
not
the
only
thing,
file a complaint. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm gonna ask you a question. I don't know how long you have been involved with this, but until today, I never found one successful attorney who did the right thing when their clients were the target parent in family court. Okay. And when the client, for some reason, some incident happened with the child, it's because the other parent messed up somehow with drugs or some criminal stuff and was exposed. Not because the attorney was, the attorney from the target parent was great or because he did the right thing. Okay. It was because the parent was on top of everything. Okay. Just like I am, I always do. Okay. And he was able to expose something that was undeniable. Okay. But, you know, and this is one thing that it's very important for all the target parents, okay, to know that it doesn't matter if you have um, a private attorney or if you have an appointed attorney. None of these people would ever bring victory into your case. You need to be on the top of the game. You need to educate yourself. You need to be, okay, press on over and over, make sure they're doing the right thing. They do on time because the time matters a lot. Okay, and learning about the RCP, the professional conduct, the rules of professional conduct. So we will know whenever they don't follow those rules, you know exactly what to say or how to pressure them to do the right thing. I have no idea. I have two attorneys who went before the judge and recused themselves when I made a letter with all the rules of the RC, the rules of professional conduct. They felt threat. That's what they say. I felt threat with your letter. I don't think we see each other eye to eye, and they recuse themselves from the case because they knew how educated I was, and they were exposed at that point already. You know,
You're exactly right, and that's the perfect word for it. Is they do feel threatened when we protective parents actually stand up for what's right. Again, because we're stopping that funding for them basically. So that's why they go and they side. Again, biased behavior. They side with the culprit slash criminal slash manipulator slash whatever other words you want to describe that person as besides unfit parent.
right?
Um, and no, I totally agree with you as far as, considering whether it's a lawyer, paid lawyer, or even appointed lawyer. And I've said that many a times on my other podcasts. And we as a parent collectively fully understand that. And that's why all of us are standing up and speaking out and having protests and events and raising awareness and, helping each other trying to figure out legally. There's a couple of links before. Well, actually, I'm sorry. After I get off with you, I'm going to send you a couple of people that I think what would be very resourceful for you, that I've been coming in contact with, because the more we do this with each other, the more information we're going to gain. And I know each state is different, but we have people in different states that are willing to, again, network with one another, to help each other out. Because ultimately, when it all comes down to it, we're all fighting for the same agenda. We have a good agenda,
Yeah.
and we're trying to conquer that whatever they're so comfortable with.
No, yeah.
We're trying to do away with that. So there's
Believe
a
me,
little bit
I
of,
know a lot of people from different states as well. And I believe me, I got so involved during these 4 years. We're talking about I got involved with all the most uh, popular movements nationwide, and you name it. Okay, I have been done legislation work. I saw so many corruption with the MGC, which was insane. Okay, that's definitely not the way to go. There's a lot of people who have been trying. Hopefully, they're going to be successful. Daddy Talk Show is one of them. I think I met Eric Eric Carroll at some point in person. He seemed to be a very nice guy, and I believe he's doing the right thing. And I saw Cash Jackson, from Illinois. James Kelly. There's a couple of people, honest people over there that they are really willing to do the right thing. And I just feel sorry because during this process, even though I was fortunate to meet some good people, but I also was, I have the some experience of meeting a couple of people who was not do the right thing at all. And
You'll get that with any type of
I
work
feel
you do, unfortunally,
yes,
growing up.
yes, yes,
Becoming an
exactly
adult,
right.
you
There's
know that.
always the good apples and the bad apples, no matter everywhere you go.
Yep, unfortunately. No, so there's actually a group, and I just did a podcast with this lady that's part of it the other day.
Mm-hmm.
It's Families Against Child Abuse Coalition, I believe. Maybe I'm saying it wrong.
I know who we're
Sorry.
talking about. Yeah,
But
I'm familiar with
I'm
them.
gonna send you the link though because it's actually really amazing. I'm again, I keep saying that I'm still educating myself, which I am because it's very overwhelming with the resources that they have. But we're not,
Uh,
we the people don't have those resources. They're not available to us because if they were, it'd be so easy for us to take down the corrupt and the elite.
that's true.
Um, so, but this is actually really, I don't know if you do have it. If you do, that's great. If you don't, I'm going to send you the link later on because I think it would be really helpful, especially within your area. It has everything state by state. It has events, it has protests, it has, campfire talks where they can just collectively come together and come up with ideas on brainstorming.
Hmm.
It has people that represent in which state you're in. Um, Again, it's just another way to network and another way to get information. They also have court watchers. So if like you have a court date coming up, and if you're saying that there's people that are in the court, which it happens all the time, that the judge or whether it's the attorney that's representing you or her attorney or maybe the law guardian or the CPS worker, they're not doing their their job due diligently, then these court watchers will pay attention to that and they'll make sure that once the court date is over with or the court hearing is over with,
Hmm.
they'll pursue action after that if that's to put in a grievance or in what have you. So
I'm very familiar
again, if you want,
with court watchers, and it's a very challenging, you know, to have them, participate. I don't know if you're aware of that. Many of the judges, of course, they don't like it, and they prevent them to be part of, the proceeding. It need to, it's very important for people to educate themselves, and I have been learning a lot about this with James Kelly, you know, and I recently I just started to use Core Watchers, and I have been denied from my own proceedings for the past my three last proceedings because of that. But I'm still gonna continue to press on with the Core Watchers because I don't believe in anybody. I don't believe I don't feel confident in step on into that arena without having people that I trust. You cannot even trust in the court transcriber because I have been noticing that how corrupted they are as well. It's not accurate.
oh, they'll manipulate it. I actually got a copy of my transcript one time and it was completely literally the whole thing was altered. I mean, to the point to where they had the nerve to put in quotation marks that I myself had admitted, openly admitted in court to my own son's witnessing my ex-husband abusing my child, and I'm going, why in the heck would I ever even say something like that when I'm in here trying to protect my child? Like, that doesn't even make any sense.
Right.
So I had to outline everything that was in that transcript, explaining, and then on the next page, my hand in it, and I'm going, oh my God, they go this far. They really will go this far. And the thing is, they will continue doing it because they feel they've gotten away with it,
Yeah.
and that's what makes the parents timid and scared and frightened, and they feel that they have no other choice but to say, What are we going to do? What are we going to say?
just
You're the
surrender
judge. You
themselves
have the power.
completely what they want with this way. But we're getting close. The movement has been growing. Okay, and we already know exactly what's going on. It's very clear. We have enough evidence to prove the corruption. It's just a matter to keep press on. What I'm saying, have stable people on board with us. Just enough to so we can get where we need to be.
So we're
We need
about to
to,
close out. If I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, sure. Oh,
We're
nothing.
about to close out, but if there's anything else that you really like of importance that you want to say, or maybe give the audience a word of advice. I know that doesn't seem like there's a lot watching now, but once we get off, a lot of people will start,
Right, 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 right.
paying
Well,
attention to the video. So
I
if there's anything that you would like to give a word of advice to the audience or close out on, go right ahead.
that I'm not too good with this camera thing. I have no idea. It's a challenge to be over here and talk about it, but this is a very important matter. And I was like, you know what, I gotta do it. And there's already told that I'm still recovering for the coronavirus. But anyways, I think the only last thing that I would have to say would be for everyone who has experienced this corruption family court. I know how hard it is. I can relate with your pain, and it's not. I'm not talking about religion. There's a big difference between religion and personal relationship with God. Okay, it makes a big difference if you really surrender yourself to Him. Yeah, He's gonna, He's able to give you the peace that you need to get through it. Okay, the strength that you need. Okay, the wisdom. It's not easy. It's a challenge as well to live by faith. But you know what? I have been learning that no one, it doesn't matter how smart it is and how beautiful and intelligently you can speak, but nobody can really talk about what really faith means until faith is all you have. And I have been experiencing that to the point, my daughter has been taken away, kidnapped from me from this corrupt system. Okay, where there's nothing I can do if I try to protect my daughter. Anything I'm gonna be seen by, like a criminal. Okay, it's even worse. I don't want to be behind bars. I want to be free so I can continue to fight and provide for my kids. But this is when you find yourself in a situation like that where there is nothing else you can do. You know, this is when you need to surrender yourself to God and test God. And see what He's able to do. And once you see, you have because I didn't have this miracle yet, okay, in this particular situation, but I have other experience in my past, and I can tell you that God does exist, and He definitely, okay, He does something at the right time. It's really important. So basically, my advice is just keep your head up, have faith in God. And God will definitely turn all this into something good if you really allow Him to do His work. Yeah, all for His glory. Hallelujah.
Well,
Amen.
I'm going to say a big amen to that. Yes, definitely. Thank you so much. That was
You're more than
inspirational.
welcome.
And hopefully, some people can take heed to that notice and realize that it's definitely needed now more than ever. So, I want to thank you so much, Marcello. Again,
Thank
I will
you.
send you a couple links and some people your
For
way that I
having me.
think that can help benefit your situation. Um, Again, this is Tina Salinas from We Are the Voice from the Silence and Afflicted. Please, please, please go on care2.com to sign the petition for family court and CPS reform, especially dealing with domestic violence and child abuse victims. It's very, very much needed. Also, we have an event coming up here in Buffalo, New York, in front of the City Hall building August 20th. Anybody that wants to be there, you can either private
Can
message
I
me.
ask you
I am
something?
looking. Sure, go ahead.
Is there anybody over there in City Hall? The last time I went over there, there was nobody in the office. It's unbelievable.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Do you have any idea if there's anybody in City Hall? Because the last time we went over there was absolutely nobody working.
Well,
They were all
we
working from
luckily
home.
have no, we have some people still working down here. So a lot of places have opened up. So hopefully, if we get enough rallied up, we'll get our voice out there, and somebody will come out. Hopefully, not thinking that we're being a nuisance, but just enough for people to understand. We're fed up with this. We're parents. We have feelings too. We want to raise our kids.
Yeah.
We don't want them in any harm. And they need to also understand the city that they're representing, that there's a flaw in what they're representing. Because we are taxpayers and we do pay for them to sit in their little high rises. But if you're going to sit there, you might as well sit there and do something right by the people.
Hmm.
So again, Marcella, it was wonderful speaking with you. Thank you so much for being a
Likewise.
guest on our show.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Have a good night. Stay blessed.
You too.
Goodbye,
Thank
everybody.
you. Bye bye.